Hello and welcome to What the Papers Are Saying. What the Papers Are Saying, we bring you the stories behind the headlines as presented by our colleagues within the media space. And we'll take you straight to the headlines of the stories as presented by our colleagues within the media space. As you're aware of What the Papers Are Saying, we bring you the stories that dominated discussions in the course of the week, or the big stories. Now today, on Thursday, President John Dramani Mahama was at the UN where he gave a speech on Ghana's position on global development. That is how City Newsroom published the story. It says, Mahama demands permanent seat for Africa on the UN Security Council. GraphicOnline.com says President Mahama condemns Gaza bombing and calls for global action. Away from the UN General Assembly meeting, we talk about the free SHS and the issues that has come with it. Daily Graphic says Vice President tours Education Ministry. Minister unveils plans to boost STEM higher education. CityNewsroom.com, 100 storm Nat Hall over 2025 BCE placement concerns. Channel 1 online.com, Channel 1 Newsroom.com says Education Ministry dismisses calls to scrap the school placement system. Placement chaos. Away from the school placement, there was a recent disturbances in Kukrentumi in the eastern region. And this is how the Ghanaian Times reported. It says, Kukrentumi erupted following death of young man in police operation. Daily Graphic says Kukrentumi police station closed down after youth attack. My Joy Online, it says 2 police officers injured in Kukrentumi clash after suspect's death. Channel 1 Newsroom Online says Eastern Region police shut down Kukrentumi station, withdraw personnel. There was a demonstration this week by the youth wing of the MPP, and they touted this demonstration as Yensuru Enhuehuna Demo. And that is how the Ghanaian publisher, put out the story. It says MPP marches against injustice. The custodian says MPP Yensuru Enhuehuna Demo hates government. The Ghanaian Times says MPP youth wing protest against alleged state intimidation. And CityNewsroom.com says Yensuro Enhuehuna Demo MPP petitions Mahama IGP over selective justice against members. The issue of Galamsey also continues to dominate media discussions. The Informer says Mills criticizes NDC over Galamsey, government not tackling fight seriously. The Chronicle says Mahama betraying Ghanaians over Galamsey fight CDM. Channel 1 says Galamsey fight, you are backtracking on your promise, fix the country to President Mahama. And City Newsroom says NDC made our fight against Galamsey hard, miracles Abuaji. And the issue of the US deportation and matters arising, the Daily Guide says suspend US deportation deal, MPP MPs. And then CityNewsroom.com says minority demands suspension of Ghana-US deportation deal. So these are the headlines that dominated media discussions in the course of the week. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, I'll introduce my guest for tonight's discussion.
Feeling super fine, don't got no time, yeah. Turn it up, I'ma strut my stuff. You see me walking on the block, can't get enough. Like, nobody can touch me. They wanna be like me, but I got no time to get up, get up, get up. Now let's go. We gotta move on up. We gotta move on up. We gotta move on up. We gotta.
Play me for.
It's go time.
We gotta move on up. We gotta move on up.
Call me.
We gotta move on up. We gotta move on up. Now let's go.
Beautiful.
Get up.
Wow.
Get up, let's go.
cross, wasn't going for it. Out towards goal! That's a superb finish.
When it's go time to supercharge your hustle, make it go time for GoTV.
Get down now, let's go.
Love it.
And it's electric. It is electric. It is electric. It is spiritual. It is infectious.
The countdown is on. The City Business Olympics 2025 is almost here. It's the ultimate day of team building, networking, and fitness fun. Don't let your company miss out. Date, Saturday, 27th September 2025. Time, 8 a.m. Venue, Eden Heights Sports Complex. Wager, rally your teammates, bring the energy, and get ready for action.
You expect to win all the medals. You want us to say one or two. You want to win everything.
It is Dampon all the way. Everyone will mention our name and they will cry.
You should expect the best from us. We are here to take everything.
Call 0558-973-973 now to register your company. The City Business Olympics 2025 is powered by City FM and Channel 1 TV in partnership with Side Hustle, and it's proudly sponsored by UMB Bank and Eden Heights Sports Complex with support from Bethel Logistics, Dampon Healthcare, and Hallmark Cafe.
You're welcome back. You're still watching what the papers are saying, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. My guest today, Selom Adono, he's with here as City FM and Channel 1 Television, and Hansen Ajimine, also here with us at City FM and Channel 1 Television. As you're aware, President John Dramani Mahama on Thursday addressed the UN General Assembly. The president made a number of demands. Most important one, a lot of people have said, is that the president wants an African country or African representation on the Security Council of the UN Security Council. Now, the president says that it's about time Africa gets a representation. Let's hear a report from our colleague Umaru Sanda Amadou from New York.
Clad in a colorful and beautiful smock, most likely woven by the Gunja people of his home region of Savannah, President John Dramani Mahama spoke not only about Ghana, but of people across the world he believes have been oppressed, from Cuba to Palestine. President John Mahama appeared to be firing on all cylinders. The crimes in Gaza, President Mahama said, must stop.
Ghana recognized the state of Palestine in 1988 and supported a two-state solution to the conflict since then. And I say, contrary to the claims of some, a two-state solution would not be a reward for Hamas. It would rather be a reprieve for the hundreds of thousands of innocent women and children and people who are facing collective punishment and forced starvation for no reason other than the fact that they are Palestinian. For nearly 2 years and for the fear of reprisals, we here in this General Assembly have been playing hide and seek with language to find the right words to help us avoid or excuse what we all know is taking place in Gaza. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter what you call it. If it looks like a duck, it swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, well, then it must be a duck. The crimes in Gaza must stop.
On the very structure of the United Nations, which is marking 80 years, President Mahama lamented the unfairness of the veto power, which has left out the continent of Africa completely.
30 years later, we African leaders are still making the same simple request for a permanent seat on the Security Council with the power of a veto. So today, Madam President, I stand here in this exact spot and ask the world, if not now, then when?
That's President John Dramani Mahama with that address at the UN General Assembly meeting currently underway in New York, United States of America. Salom, I'll start with you. Listen to the president. A lot of people have said that it was a powerful speech by the president.
Well, I think it was a good speech. I think the president touched on all the key issues that many heads of state have shied away from. And I think he hit the nail right on the head. He said the tough things that many people have been, running around and not really, dealing with. So, for example, the issue about the Palestinian or the Gaza crisis, I mean, it's amazing. The world is looking on, and the people in Gaza are suffering. I mean, when you watch the videos or you watch images from Gaza, I mean, children, women, dying out of starvation, sometimes just being killed for nothing. Hospitals being bombed, and the excuse from Israel is that Hamas and the terrorists are using those places as shields. There was some time ago they said that they were using the underground of the hospitals as an operations place, etc. So that justified the bombing of those places. If you look at all of these, I mean, it's not fair. Of course, we condemn the October, 2023 terrorist attack in Israel. I mean, powered by orchestrated by the Hamas terrorist organization. But it's been 2 years, and too many people have died in this. Of course, about 1,000 and so Israelis died. That is condemnable. The world has condemned it. But there is an extent to what we call proportionate, a response to some of these things. Too many people have died, and too many innocent people, children. I mean, day-old children, a week old, a month old, a year-old children have died out of starvation. And there are times, the Israeli forces do not even allow for aid to get into Gaza. But these are people who have nothing. Yeah. The only things they are fighting with are stones and clubs, whilst they are being bombed, by heavy missiles, etc. So I think the world has to come to a place where we see the solution in this Israeli Palestinian war, on the horizon. We need a solution. A two-state solution should be what we see. So I was glad when countries like France, etc., began recognizing the two-state solution, or Palestine as a state. We have to bite, or we have to say the hard things, and we have to bring pressure to bear on.
I think this whole attack will ever come to an end.
It should.
With the trend positions taken by the powers that be.
The world must bring some pressure to bear on Israel. Israel is adamant because of the U.S. Because Israel knows that no matter what it does, the U.S. will support them. And we should come to a point where that should change. And you see, this is not strange. In the apartheid era, when the blacks on their own soil were being maltreated by the whites in South Africa, the world, labeled the ANC as a terrorist organization, and banished people like Nelson Mandela today, who are heroes, etc., as being terrorists. Many years on, here we are eulogizing the likes of Walter Sisulu, Nelson Mandela, etc. They were just seeking freedom in their own country. It's the same thing we're seeing here. So now Israel is tried to push the Palestinians to very small corners in the land, West Bank, Gaza. Now Israel wants the Palestinians to move away from Gaza and go where? Millions of people in a very small space. That's an issue in itself. Now you want them to move out of there to wherever. Where should they go? And the world is looking on, and the Israelis are advancing with this, and they are moving there and bombing, sacking the people. Where should they go? And the world is looking on. So I think the president was spot on when he said that Ghana, since the 1980s, suggested a two-state solution as the only way of resolving this crisis. The U.S. could do better, and the other nations. In fact, UK, understand, is recognizing the statehood of the Palestinians, and that is great. The conditions for recognition of statehood, what are they in international law? There should be a permanent population, which they have. There should be a fixed, or there should be a government in place. The Palestinians have a government of a kind in place. The PLO, Yasser Arafat, now Mahmoud Abbas, etc. They should have a defined territory. They have the Gaza Strip, and they have the West Bank. All of these are in place. They should have the capacity to enter into relations with other countries. They are doing so. But that will be seen more when countries begin to recognize them. So they fit the bill. They have everything it takes to be recognized as a state. Why is Israel not allowing them or agreeing for them to be recognized as a state? The excuse that recognizing them as a state, is a victory for Hamas. It's neither here nor there. When you push people to the wall to a certain extent, what you see is these things. And we saw it in South Africa. We saw it in how the blacks began to behave, attacking the whites, setting places on fire, etc. The blacks then did not have the kind of support the Palestinians in Hamas, etc. have today. That's why we did not see them attacking the whites with missiles, etc. The world has to wake up to this. What is happening there is terrible. You see children dying out of starvation and hunger. You see them, their rapes are showing. It's terrible. The world cannot be looking on. The moral world should speak. And I'm happy key countries are beginning to speak. And President Mahama was spot on. He talked about Africa deserving a permanent seat on the Security Council. Yeah. It is long overdue. It is long overdue. The 80-year-old organization still has the same old 5 permanent members on the Security Council. There is no African representation there. 54 countries, over 1 billion people. None is represented on the Security Council.
It's about time we have some reforms.
What kind of world are we building?
Yeah, the UN goes through some reforms.
Of course, it's long overdue. What kind of reforms are we looking at? When you look at the most populous countries in the world, of course, China has a seat there, but the most populous country itself, India is not there. The BRICS, nobody's represented there. Nigeria, the most populous black nation, it's not there. It cannot be business as usual. The UN needs serious reforms. And of course, I don't entirely agree with Trump in all the things he says. But Trump feels that the UN needs reforms. I just don't like how he says it and the kind of reforms he thinks the UN needs. But the UN needs serious reforms. Okay. We cannot continue that way. And President Mahama couldn't have said it better. Even the way the world is treating the immigration issue. It is so skewed and it's so inequitable. It is so wrong. And when you look at it carefully, it is geared towards the poorer nations. It is wrong.
But if a country says, stay in your country, don't come to my country.
Yeah, it's their duty it's their right to say so. But the way they do it is wrong. And it's so inequitable. People will move anyway. And there are conditions that force people to move. The world contributed largely to the situation in Africa and other places. I'm not one who will blame people for situations. But the West contributed. So if you have contributed to the situation of the people and now these people require some assistance, what are you talking about?
Let me bring Hansen into this conversation. Hansen, you listen to Mr. President. Another issue that dominated the whole conversation has to do with climate change and how a lot of people felt that he was responding to Donald Trump, who had earlier made a statement.
It was not a direct response, but of course it was needed for somebody to make that point forcefully. And I think that from where the world has traveled with the matter of climate change, global warming, the commentary by Donald Trump, if taken seriously by anybody, really sets the world back. And of course, even in our backyard in Ghana, we understand the impact of climate change. When we were in JHS and SHS, you could clearly talk about the two major seasons and give a definite time period. But now you cannot do so. Even in Ghana, we can talk about situations where there are droughts in parts of the Bono region, there are droughts in parts of the northern part of the country. And so the president's point really about climate change and the fact that the global world, the global north, has contributed to the climate we have, which to an extent is a push factor for people within the global south to move to the global north, is adding to the immigration issues, and for the global north to ignore all these issues and then have immigration laws that are not humane in nature in itself is disturbing. And I think that's one thing about the president's speech. If you look at the speech, it was well crafted and made sure that the various issues marry themselves. And so Salom has dealt with the issues about Gaza and the rest. Then the president talks about the fact that when you look at the veto power, apart from the fact that we need to put an African nation as a permanent member on the Security Council, the veto power that has been given to the Security Council in itself had to be looked at again.
Yeah.
I mean, in this situation that we are talking about in Gaza, the UN has had a meeting and decided that there's a need for a ceasefire. US vetoed that particular decision. And so the directive that there should be a ceasefire could not be materialized. So the point also is that it's not only about adding Africans to the UN, to the Security Council. The point about a veto power where nations will come together, take a decision, but we have a select few who can on their own say we disagree, and that is it, should come to an end. Beyond this, the president also talks about issues of the financial architecture of the world and how they are engineered against Africa in general. His commentary about how we perceive migrants and the fact that he made mention of Ghanaians who have left Ghana to other areas, even to the United States, to other areas, and have made or added to the development of those areas. And I think that it's important we also send that signal that, of course, these countries who have very tight migration laws have benefited from migration in itself. And we've had, why do we have the situation where countries in Global South are complaining about brain drain? Because you have knowledgeable people who've left Global South to Global North to help in the development of their countries.
Are we ever going to see this representation on the Security Council? Because Hansen, I followed the UN, assembly meeting for a while. Almost every year, you get an African leader pushing for reforms, getting Africa, representation on the Security Council, but it has never happened.
So, I mean, you can't end the advocacy just because it has not ended. You would need to start from somewhere, and we need to push till we get there. I mean, the president talks about reparations when it comes to slavery.
Yeah.
It predates his time. But these are points that African leaders at every point in time when they get the opportunity will have to make the point forcefully. In that same manner, we need to make the point forcefully. And it will have to work because we can't have an 80-year-old structure still the same after 80 years. The number of people from Africa has increased. The president's speech indicated that when it was a League of Nations, there were 3 African nations that included that were part of the founding nations. For the UN, 4 nations. But now we have about 50 or 51 African nations that are on the UN part of the UN as an international body. Why should we still have a situation where Africa of over 50 or about 50 nations, part of the UN, do not have representation of a crucial body such as the Security Council? And so, yes, it might be a rhetoric to some. It might be a request that we would make always, which might be falling on deaf ears. But those of us which it is very critical to us, we cannot, and I repeat, we cannot stop making or pushing that advocacy just because those who it may go against are not listening to us.
Hansen, thank you very much. You're still watching what the papers are saying. Coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the school placement system, which has generated some controversy in recent times.
Me pay so dear me chame sister me dad dear me chibia na me amshishimi akuna ida me many tea o some me saka me say me ida so te saka se dia so da mo hwe juju so mo bag de ho dia me ba bi free so what hwe bag na ma mo na me hwe wow se me nya kwamfo bi na na mo sori o
In a world filled with challenges, we all need guidance, hope, and a lifeline to anchor us.
This is Lifeline, and I'm your host, Fred Crunchy Mensa.
for social issues, relationship challenges, and family matters. Lifeline is here to inspire, uplift, and guide you on your journey.
Where we give you support, where we hold your hand through the valley and through the thick and thins of life.
Join Bishop Fred Crunchy Mensah.
I welcome you especially to Lifeline.
Every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 p.m. right here on Channel 1 TV. Let's walk this path together, strengthen our faith, our families, and our lives. Lifeline, because every soul deserves a guiding light. Tune in to Lifeline on Channel 1 TV and let's grow together.
You're welcome back. You're still watching What the Papers Are Saying, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. My name is Sami. We are sitting for regular host Vivian, Kai, Lokko. This week also, parents were frustrated. Parents were angry because of the school placement system. A number of parents were at the Nat Hall here in Accra looking for schools for the awards. They brought about a whole number of issues. The Vice President has spoken about this matter and is urging the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service to help address this matter.
Yelling is not about the black voice, it's not about wrong. So we need to help them to understand. And we also need to support the teachers. And the teachers themselves also need to be supported in how they can dispense discipline. So there will be peace and quiet in the learning environment. And yes, we have operationalized the no-fee choice policy, and we are very, very happy about it. And we're also the one who looked at the student loan plus. We brought in the plus for a good reason. Those of us had a bit of experience and knowing that some students would get personal rights, but in order to qualify to that loan, you ought to have registered.
That was the Vice President, Professor Jenana Opoku Ajiman, talking about the school placement, which has dominated media conversations in the course of the week. Salam, I'll start with you, but before I start with you, I'll run you through stories, City Newsroom has done over this placement issue. In 2018, it says parents must have at the GS to complain about the school placement challenge. In 2019, Accra parents and students frustrated over school placement system. In 2022, parents, students anxious as concerns with school placements remain unresolved. In 2023, a same issue. In 2024, same, and 2025, we are recording the same issue. Can we ever resolve these school placements once and for all?
So what you didn't add is that 2026
we should expect it
to be the same. That is if nothing changes. So nothing changes if nothing changes. Something must change. The computer's placement system has been helping us since 2005 thereabout, and it has not been without challenges. It's done some good work, but there are challenges, and the challenges must be addressed like any system. But it does appear that we've not paid serious attention to the challenges. I recall in our time when we were getting selected into secondary schools, the system was manual. So heads of senior secondary schools would gather at one point in a region, and the cards when you chose school, they wrote them on cards, and the cards will go round. So let's say if it's 12 ones, your first choice will go around, they will pick you. I wonder how they really did that, because today with the numbers, I don't know how that's going to work. So the computer placement system came, or the computer system came, which was a welcome one, and the essence of that was to eliminate the human error, ensure transparency, deal with corruption, ensure efficiency, bring about automation, etc. Super. But it does appear that we've had challenges around the problem or the situation or the system we've not been able to resolve fully. Of course, nobody is expecting a seamless computerized placement system, given the kind of context we have. So, for example, the challenges we've had over the years have been twofold mainly, or can be organized under two heads. One, people have been placed in schools they did not choose, in essence, schools they do not like. And number two, they've been placed or they've not been placed at all. So placed in schools they did not like or they did not choose, and then they've not been placed at all. So when people mass up at the centers, these are the two issues they have. So when you interact with them, some will tell you, I've not been posted, I've not been placed, so I want to be placed. That's how come we have the self-placement. So there are times they help them do the self-placement there, or they explain the self-placement to them. They go out, do it themselves, and they are fine. They do not get the school they want usually, but some school has been given. But look at all the people gathered there. Not all of them want to go to grade A schools, even though a lot of them want to go to grade A schools. Some of them just want to go to school. They want to be placed. The problem we have, the main problem is that people have been placed in schools they have not chosen. So, for example, somebody is in Accra, and the person has been placed in a day school in Kumasi. That makes it very difficult. A 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, you can't say this kid should go live in Sunyani or Ho or someplace on his or her own. That is difficult for any parent to take. So the essence of the day school system they've added to the selection is to help so that in case you do not get any of your choices, you have a day school within a certain catchment area in your locality you can attend. Okay. And that's fine. That's why they tell them to choose a day school. But you don't stay in Accra and you are posted to a day school in Wa, or you don't stay in Wa and are posted to a day school in Takrady. That becomes difficult. So I don't know how the computer system or the language is couched, but these are serious issues. And what the officers should be doing is to have a proper customer service arrangement which will help deal with the matter. Sometimes just explaining the issues to the people will help them. If explaining it will not help, somebody placed in Wa, when a person as a day student, when a person is in Accra, those matters must be dealt with. So the solution in my view is one, that the selection of the schools, and it's been said many times, the selection of the schools must be done after the release of the results. If you let them choose the schools when the results have not been released, there are people who go into the exam with inordinate expectations. They feel they could do well. They feel they could blow 10 A's or 10 1s, but the thing comes that they've gotten aggregate 30. Some people too do not have proper guidance. So when they are choosing the school, they are on their own. They just choose the schools. They choose any kind of school at all. So you have very brilliant students who could be in grade A schools, choosing some schools, grade C or grade Z schools. Others who are not so good and cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, per their academic records, qualify for any grade A school, are seen choosing grade A schools. And even the way they choose the schools are not proper. You can't choose Presec, choose Achimota, choose Akraka, and expect that you will get one of them. It doesn't happen. If one rejects you, all of them will reject you. So none of your choices will take you, and then you'll be in trouble. So the results, the selection should be done after the results have been released. That will manage expectation. So if you thought you were a Wesley Girls material, or you thought really per your results and your record, you could make 10 A's, something happens, the results comes, you make aggregate 15. Aggregate 15 doesn't go to Wesley Girls easily. So by that, of course, you will cry for not doing well, but you will not blame computerized placement system. So if you have 15 and your aim was to go to Wesley Girls, but you have 15, you have to manage yourself. So you choose a school that from the records could accept aggregate 15. It reduces the pressure on the so-called A schools. It helps the persons themselves because it manages them. Number two, I think as a country, we must also develop infrastructure in the so-called existing A schools, the Presecs, the Prempeh colleges, etc. We must expand infrastructure. We must equip them better so that they can take more numbers. Number three, we must upgrade schools. President Kufuor in his time did this model senior secondary school thing, where every district had a school, they will upgrade to a certain standard. We have to go back to that. If we were doing that regime by regime, by now district would have had a certain number of schools. Of course, President Mahama built the E-blocks where every community has a community day school. That has come in handy. If we continued it that way, upgrading the schools, equipping the schools, a lot of schools would have graduated from class B to class A, class C to class B, and would have been progressing as a country. We have not done so well in respect of that, and that is coming back to bite us. We must also deal with corruption. The essence or the reason why, one of the reasons why the computerized placement system was introduced was to deal with corruption and human error or human intervention. We hear people pay 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 just for their awards to be placed in grade A schools, when indeed their grades themselves do not match the grade A school status. But somehow they get into those schools, and it has become so normal. How come these people are able to get into those schools? Does GS care really about solving this? I don't think so. If GS cared, they could do random checks in schools. Go to a class, take 1, 2, 3, 4 people at random. Let's see your grades. What grades did you come with? We see the grades. How come you are here? Because per the records, this is the cutoff point for this school this year. How come you are here? Or you don't even need to go to the class. You have the results from administration. Everybody's results is in the system. In fact, you don't even need to go to the school. You can work on it from your GES office, because all of that is in the system. And flag those grades which are beyond the official cutoff points of the schools, and get them queried. If possible, sack them or take them to the schools they have to be. If you do that 3, 4, 5 years continuously, people will know that it is fruitless going to pay money to some people for you to be taken to some school, because the system will find you out and you'll be expelled. And I'm not sure in Ghana today, if you found such people and you expel them, anybody will have an issue. Nobody will have an issue. You'd rather be praised because people are sick and tired of the corruption. And people are still doing it because there is no punishment. That's what it is. There's no punishment. So I think we must be a bit more responsive in the way we deal with this problem. Authorities must set up proper customer service systems to help deal with the situation. And what I'm happy about is that there's been some assurance that schools will not reopen when the matters are still at the head. A lot of the issues will be resolved before schools reopen. I think that gives the parents some assurance, because for a lot of people, they think that if their children don't go to school in the reopening week, then they've lost it. I mean, they need to talk to them. But the real problems of the system must be dealt with. Next year, we'll see the same headlines.
So, just to pick from one of your points on the timing for picking of the schools. So, the universities in Ghana usually used to have a system where people would pick their results, their schools, or would apply to the school and then make their choices for courses. And then when the results are released, if you don't meet the cutoff point, you don't get any placement at all. What the universities in Ghana, in particular University of Ghana, did was that after the results are released, you're given about a 2-week window to now look at your performance and go back and look at the courses you picked and see whether these courses, the performance you have, can actually get you into the courses that you've picked based on the cutoff points. If you cannot, you have about some 2-week window to make the changes. And I think that is something that perhaps the CSSPS
can also
should learn from. So before all these centers are opened, a 1-week period should be given where students are allowed access again to their portal, and based on their performance, they pick schools on their categories. Now, one issue that I have observed from all these reports that you've actually indicated as far back as 2018 goes to the fact that there's an issue with there may be an issue with the CSSPS system in the first place. And that the first one Salom touched on. How come people will pick 6 courses, 6 schools, and then they will be given selection into a school that they did not pick at all? The other one is that the CSSPS uses a criteria. And so you write in 9 subjects. There's grade 1 to about grade 9. After that, there's an aggregate. And so we have schools categorized into category A, category B, category C. Because some of the category A schools may not have enough space. So sometimes the system will go beyond the grades.
Okay.
So both of us will have 06, 06, but your raw score might be 650 and my raw score will be 540 because you might have gotten your ones in the 85, 86, 89, 90s. And I had my ones in 80, 80, 80, 81. And so both of us had 06. Both of us selected the grade A school, but you will get into it and I might get my grade B school. That at least if that is how the system still runs, that is how they made us understand. And that's why I have category A, B, C, D. So you have certain schools that the cutoff point will be 06, 07, those 08, 09, and in that manner. And in instances where there's issue of space, then they would go to the next level and look at your raw score. The first problem that we've observed is that somebody gets 06. The person does not get his first choice. Another gets 12 and gets the first choice. I mean, there's some discrepancy here.
But
Because if you're saying
the
that
Education Ministry has come to explain about this particular point, and it's about the courses the various individuals chose. So, for instance, as you mentioned, if the person chose science, there's a cutoff point. If the person chooses
even with that, I'm talking about people who choose the same.
Who chose the same thing? Who chose the same?
Obviously,
and
the
it
requirement
happens.
for science
will be
general arts and the rest.
But I choose science. You choose science. You get category 12. You get 12. I get 12. I get 06. You get Bishop Herman. I don't get. They don't select me for Bishop Herman. That's a problem. And that's a problem from the system. And so you cannot convince somebody who had 06 to go to a category C school, and someone has a grade 15 is going to a category A school. Mind you, we've had the private schools in time past complain that there was a deliberate attempt marking their students down. Of course, this is something that we cannot affirm or corroborate. However, the point remains that we've heard reports from parents and from students that they know of friends who had worse grades than what they had, but got into their the main schools that they wanted. Now, when it comes to the centers that have been created, the centers basically use the same system. So if you go there with 19, what parents will usually do is that the child has 19, but wants a category B school, which perhaps the cutoff point is a grade 15. That technically and per the criteria shouldn't happen. And so, because parents will want a good school for their what, they may still insist, and that might bring these queues. But where the challenge is that my ward had a grade 19. We all went to the system at Accra. Another parent would have 25. We are all looking for placement into St. John's. You tell me that a grade 19 cannot get me to St. John's. But the one who had 25, we were able to change the person's school and get the person into St. John's. There's no transparency in that way. And then so the issue of corruption comes in. All these exposés and even perception about corruption. So parents come in there with their mindset that it is possible to get things changed. The final problem that I identify is that even though there are decentralized systems in the various regions, and this is a matter of the problem with our governance structure and the fact that we have not empowered our decentralization system, because everybody thinks that you need to come to Accra to get it done. It is in Accra that you can make the change, because it is in Accra that perhaps you see the minister. But the minister has said today that he does not even have logins, the directors do not have logins, and the same kind of people who have logins at the Accra Center have same logins in the region. But people will travel all the way from the regions to Accra.
Is it not because Accra is centralized?
So that's what I'm saying, that
you brought everything to Accra.
So that's what I'm saying, that it goes down to our governance structure. The problem with our governance structure, the fact that we purport to be practicing a decentralized system that we are not empowering, whether deliberately or inadvertently, we are not empowering. And it's because of such reasons that we have someone move all the way from Badu in my hometown to Accra. He doesn't know anybody here, comes here. He doesn't have money to even go for a hotel room. We'll look around the place. We'll go to the bus stop and sleep overnight and go back to the center. I mean, these are citizens we are treating in this manner. And so we need to look at the problems holistically. And I think that there's a need for a review of the CSSPS system. I strongly believe that there's a problem with the system. I strongly believe. And so the first step in addressing all this is to have a review of the CSSPS system. After the review, we need to look at our criteria for allocating the schools. Yeah. Communicate the criteria clearly to parents. Where we know that there's going to be discretionary power exercise, we need to make it known and perhaps have certain rules in the exercise of that discretionary power and have a transparent mode of ensuring that the CSSPS work. Then the issue about the timing for selection. And I think that the best approach is to do what the universities are doing. You select while you're going to write your BEC. After results are released, we ask you to go back into the portal, look at your results. When you were going to write, you thought you were going to get 9 ones. You had a grade 22. Go back and look. If your 22 can go to St. James. If it cannot go to St. James, choose another school. Then we need to work on the human element, the corruption, the exposés. We hear things. Parents speak to us. We know what happens at these centers. And so there's a human element that we need to work on it. Because parents, aside the fact that there's free SHS, parents will have to still put together some funds, of course, to prepare for these students to go to school. And we need not waste their time. And I use waste because this is a necessary waste of time for them to leave their work and go to the centers.
Okay.
Just to conclude on this. Parents must be parents. Parents must provide guidance to their children when they are selecting schools. Where the parents do not have the know-how, the parents should point their kids to people who understand the system, knowledgeable people. It could be their teachers. So they take special interest in the children. You can't just choose any school anyhow. You can't choose any course anyhow, because you have to select schools and you have to select courses. It's important that they are directed and they are assisted to do so based on their strengths. Number 2, the students or the pupils must also sit down and learn. They must sit down and learn. And stop roaming about. Stop TikToking. Stop doing unnecessary things. They must sit down and learn. So yes, the parents have a role to play. The children also have a role to play. As the system or the government or the educational system also has a role to play. The children must sit up and learn. 2 years or so ago, Zoe or somebody who went to cover, I think they did it at Independence Square. Somebody came, he said they had chosen at this school or something. He had aggregate 22. He was giving some school, so he was there to see if he could change it. Aggregate 22. You want to go to Addis school? Go and sit somewhere.
The other thing is that depending on where you are coming from, there are certain grades that you cannot and you would not make.
Yes, I'm saying no. So,
the level of performance will differ.
That takes me to the quota system. Okay, the quota system has a role it plays. We are not the same. If somebody is at Shidiem something school and the person studied under very bad conditions, under trees, etc., and somebody is at Richard School or Christ the King studying with the best of conditions, the two cannot be the same. Yeah. If one from Richard School or Christ the King makes grade 7 and one from the Shidiem place makes even grade 10, the one from Hidem making grade 10 could be said to have even done better because of the conditions. That is why a system must be put in place to bring equity. That is equity. To bring equity. And that is the quota system. That is why the public schools had about 30% allocation to the grade A schools. So that is there for them. I don't know if it still exists, but that was the idea, that was the thinking. But where you come from a normal school in Accra or a good place, and instead of you studying, you don't study, you go and play around and you get a grade which we cannot tolerate in some schools. You don't go and waste anybody's time. You don't go and add to the numbers. You think about the school you are giving and see how you can make amends when you go there. Yes, so there's a thing to be said for the quota system. That's why I think Hansen said that the private schools think they mark them, etc. There is a quota system. Of course, more education and more explanation needs to be given to that. But I support the quota system because we are all not the same.
Yeah.
If you do so, you will perpetuate an inequality that we cannot assist. That is even how come we have affirmative action to bring up some people who have been disadvantaged in one way or the other. It happens everywhere. In fact, we have the black empowerment, economic empowerment in other countries because they felt the blacks had been subjugated and disadvantaged for a long time. Affirmative action quota systems work. In fact, there is even one for the people in the community. So, for example, if Channel 1 were a secondary school, people around the school should have some quota.
Yeah.
So that the community that owns the school
feels they are part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of these are considerations, but it must be transparent so that nobody feels that they are being cheated or etc. But the students must sit down and learn. That's all they have to do.
The social media is coming too much. Just watching what the papers are saying, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. Gentlemen, we have some few minutes to go. I'll just take your views on the demonstration held by the youth wing of the New Patriotic Party and then Fix the Country on Galamsey. Hansen, I'll start with you. You were at the MPP demonstration. Yensro Hunibia demonstration. Demonstration. What's the intent of this demonstration?
Well, it was to make the point that the Ghana Police Service was being selective when it comes to the application of the law. And the NPP Youth Wing make reference to the happenings in Akutia where threats were made on the life of the minority leader and some NPP executives, but no actions have been taken. Similarly, an assault was witnessed and recorded and then also shared on social media against the NPP's third vice chair, where the perpetrators are seen in the video, but nothing had been done. And they also talked about the fact that there had been abuse of the rights of persons who were arrested. And these persons, they listed to be affiliated to the NPP. And so they sought to actually demonstrate in their own way to send a strong caution and warning to the police and to the government that they wouldn't countenance this. I think that the point ought to be made clear that if somebody has done something wrong and there's a need for you to take the person to court, I think that everybody supports it, and that's why we have a structure of a judiciary and we have a court system that allows you to do so. But to deny people bail, and from the reports that they give us, some persons were arrested well over 72 hours and they had not been placed before court. And it's not as though they had even been granted bail and they were not able to meet the bail conditions. And in instances where they are granted bail, and this is bail granted by the police, which is a discretion they have, there's no form of reason to the conditions. And these are conditions that are very difficult for anybody to be able to meet. And so I think that we need to be very clear on this. Our constitution is very clear.
Yeah.
Specific articles in the constitution dictates that the rights of people who are accused of offenses ought to be upheld.
Okay.
And as a people, we actually need to make this point forceful.
Okay. Salam, you follow the demonstration?
Well, Demonstrations are a part of our democracy, and it's important that people are allowed to express their views. So when they express their views, we must look at what they are saying and see what merits are in there and see what we can address and address them. That's how democracies grow. So if they claim that there's been selective application of the law, the police must look at it and see if what they are saying has merits. And if it does have some merits or have merits, they should look at their systems again and deal with it. It is not proper to treat certain people differently from others. That's fine. But for the MPP, the point I make really is that, or to the politicians really, if you are in power, you will not be in power forever. So when you are in power, you use the time to better institutions. You use the time to improve the system, because they are the same systems you have when you are in opposition, awaiting another bite at power. So MPP just left power barely 8-9 months ago. Here they are saying that the police are being controlled by the government. Does that presuppose that that's what they did in their time? And the police officers are the same. I'm not sure NDC, the government has recruited new police officers yet. The police top brass are just the same. A few changes have been made, put 1 or 2 people, just some places. We must improve our institutions. NDC must be improving the institutions now, so that tomorrow, when they find themselves in opposition, they will have a better system that will better appreciate the law and human rights, etc., so that they will not be on the streets today. But once they have complained, let's look at the complaints and let's deal with the merits of the complaints.
Solomon, thank you very much. Hansen, thank you very much. It's been another exciting edition of What the Papers Are Saying that came to you live from our studio here in Accra. My name is Sami Uyafi. So we'll come your way again. May the good Lord be with us all.